They say twins share everything, the same heartbeat, the same soul, even the same dreams. But what happens when one twin dies and the heartbeat doesn't stop? This isn't a legend. It isn't a bedtime story. This is what happens when death forgets to separate two souls, and one of them refuses to let go. He died at birth, but never left me.
My mother told me I was born screaming, and I never really stopped. She said the doctors wrapped me in a pink blanket and my brother, Daniel, in blue. We were minutes apart, and when he didn't cry, the room fell quiet in a way no room full of nurses should ever be. They said he wasn't breathing. My mother remembers the metallic smell of blood, the cold tremor of the doctor's voice, and how I screamed harder when they covered his face. He was gone before I ever opened my eyes. But that wasn't the end of him. Our nursery was painted a soft desert yellow, with cartoon suns smiling from the wallpaper. We lived in a quiet part of Mesa, Arizona, the kind of place where the air shimmered with heat and grief, faded only because everything dried up in the sun. Mum kept Daniel's crib beside mine. She said she couldn't bring herself to take it down. Every night, she sat in the rocking chair between us and hummed lullabies to the space where he should have been. But sometimes she didn't have to hum, because something else did. When I was 3, I began telling my mother about Danny. She thought it was normal. An imaginary friend may be my way of coping. I talk to the empty crib, laugh at nothing, and whisper secrets into the silence. But then she started waking up at night to the sound of a baby crying. She'd run into my room, and there I'd be fast asleep. The crying, though, it came from the empty crib. At first, she blamed herself. She said her mind was playing tricks. Postpartum trauma, she told the doctor. But one night she recorded it. That faint, wet gurgle of a newborn wail, dragging through the static. I found the cassette years later in her dresser, labeled only June 12th, The Cry. When I was 5, strange things began to happen. The mobile above the empty crib spun on its own, the little stars jangling though no air moved. My baby blanket would slide off my body and fold itself neatly on Daniel's side. I told my mom that he liked to share. I still remember the smell. That sweet, sour rot that filled the room sometimes, like spoiled milk and wet metal. My father, a construction worker with rough hands and a weak stomach, refused to sleep there anymore. But Mum stayed, always between us. Then, one night, I woke to the sound of breathing, not mine. Slow, wet. It came from the crib beside me. The nightlight flickered, throwing pale yellow over the rails, and for the first time in my life, I saw him. Not a ghostly blur or a shadow, but a baby, curled like a question mark under the blue blanket, his skin pale grey, his tiny lips moving though no air passed them. His eyes opened, deep black pits where life had never been. And then he smiled. I screamed. My mother rushed in, grabbed me, and when she looked at the crib, it was empty. Empty, but cold. She pressed her hand to the mattress and jerked back like it burned. After that night, she took down Daniel's crib, but she didn't throw it away. She folded the blue blanket, kissed it, and packed it into the attic. She told me Daniel was at peace, that he was in heaven, watching over us. She lied. Years passed. I grew into a quiet child, nervous around mirrors and dark corners. I never slept with the light off. Every birthday, I left half my cake untouched because Mum said it was tradition. Half for Daniel. But when I'd wake the next morning, the plate was always empty, crumbs in a small circle, as if someone with tiny hands had eaten from it. Once, when I was 9, I told my father that Daniel didn't want cake anymore. He wanted me. He slapped me so hard my ears rang, told me never to speak that name again. But that night, his toolbox fell from the garage shelf and crushed his foot. He never walked right again. I learned to stop talking about Daniel, but he never stopped talking to me. His voice grew with mine, once soft and gurgled, now sharp, whispering from behind mirrors, from inside vents. "You were supposed to die too," he'd say. "You stole my breath." By the time I turned 12, my mother was a shadow of herself. Gaunt, sleepless, clutching rosaries she never used to believe in. I'd wake up to her pacing outside my door, muttering prayers, checking to see if I was still breathing. The house on Messer Drive was no longer a home. It was a graveyard with sunlight painted on it. The last thing I remember before we moved was the sound of laughter. Two voices, mine and another, echoing perfectly in sync. I looked into the mirror that day, and for a heartbeat, there were two of me. The house we moved into was supposed to be a new beginning. Mum said it was brighter, safer, with more space for us to breathe again. But light doesn't scare away what lives in the dark. It only gives it more places to hide. The new house was in Tempe, near a stretch of desert where the wind sang through cactus needles at night. My room had 2 windows that faced the mountains. The walls were painted white, the carpet beige, everything plain and new. But when we finished unpacking, I saw it again. That old blue blanket, folded neatly at the end of my bed. Mom swore she hadn't brought it down from the attic. I didn't argue. For a while, things were quiet. I made friends, went to middle school, pretended to be normal. But sometimes, when I brushed my hair in the morning, I'd glance at the mirror and see something just slightly wrong. My reflection's lips wouldn't move exactly with mine. Its eyes would flicker, like an image out of sync. I told myself it was imagination, that I'd had nightmares too long, that the brain could trick itself into seeing what it feared. Until the day I caught him smiling. It happened on a Tuesday. After school, I'd come home early. The house was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. I walked to the bathroom to wash my hands. When I looked up, the mirror showed me different. My reflection's head was tilted. Its mouth curved upward, faint but definite, and I wasn't smiling. My throat closed up. I blinked. The image blinked half a second late. Then it lifted one hand, palm up slowly, deliberately, and pressed it against the glass. Before I could think, I felt cold radiate through the surface, like winter wind spilling into summer air. I screamed and ran downstairs. Mum found me trembling behind the couch, insisting the mirror had moved on its own. She tried to laugh it off, but her face didn't match the sound. That night, she covered every mirror in the house with bedsheets. I didn't sleep, but she sat outside my door anyway, humming that old lullaby again, the one she used to sing to both of us. The notes wavered, broken. By morning, her voice was gone completely. After that, it was little things. My reflection turning its head when I didn't. My name whispered faintly from the bathroom while the shower ran cold. My notebooks filled with handwriting that wasn't mine. Sometimes at school, I'd zone out and wake up with drawings on the corner of my papers. 2 infants, side by side, one shaded black. I tried to tell people, but who would believe me? My father had already left. My mother didn't sleep, and I was the girl whose twin had died. I remember one morning, months later, standing in front of the bathroom mirror before school. My reflection stared back, eyes empty. I whispered, "Stop it." The air in the room tightened. Then the reflection leaned forward, though I hadn't moved at all, and whispered back, "You stop first." That was when I realized it wasn't me looking into the mirror anymore. It was him, Daniel. Older now. My age, my face. Except when he smiled. His teeth looked a shade too sharp, his expression a little too pleased. Sometimes he'd vanish for weeks, let me believe I was free, only to show up in the corner of a photo, or the reflection of a window. I'd feel him standing behind me in crowds, brushing the back of my neck with a breath that wasn't air. I stopped celebrating birthdays at 16. The night before, I heard knocking. Slow, soft taps on the wall behind my bed. I counted them. 16. One for each year. I asked Mom to move again. She said we couldn't keep running from ghosts. But that's the thing about ghosts. They don't live in houses. They live in blood. It wasn't until my senior year that she finally broke. I woke one morning to the sound of glass shattering. She was in the bathroom, every mirror smashed, her hands shaking and bleeding as she screamed, "He's not gone. He never left." They took her to a hospital that night. And just like that, I was alone. After she left, the house went quiet again. Not peaceful, just empty. That's when I started hearing him clearly, like someone whispering into my ear while I tried to sleep. His voice was older now. Familiar. "You're the one who should have gone. You took my place. You owe me." He wasn't a baby anymore. He was me. Or maybe I was becoming him.